Star Trek shares Dr. Crusher's heartbreaking Starfleet secret that nobody saw coming. Star Trek has always thrived on its ability to weave deeply personal stories into the fabric of its futuristic universe. The franchise has shown us the triumphs and tragedies of its captains, engineers, and helmsmen, but perhaps no Starfleet officer has embodied both resilience and vulnerability more than Dr. Beverly Crusher. Best remembered as the trusted chief medical officer aboard the USS Enterprise D in Star Trek: The Next Generation, Crusher is a character often celebrated for her compassion, intelligence, and quiet strength. Yet, beneath her calm exterior lies a secret that the series only hinted at, a tragic chapter in her Starfleet history that fans have often overlooked. Recently, Trek canon has revisited Crusher's past in surprising ways, especially with Star Trek: Picard revealing new layers of her life. And in doing so, the franchise has shared a heartbreaking Starfleet secret about her that nobody saw coming. This revelation reshapes not only how we see Beverly Crusher, but also how we understand her choices across the next generation and beyond. It's the kind of story that highlights what Star Trek does best, reminding us that even in the 24th century, the scars of loss and love shape the people who carry the weight of the future. The early loss that defined Beverly Crusher. Most fans remember that Beverly Crusher was a widow when we met her in The Next Generation. Her husband, Jack Crusher, was killed while serving under Captain Jean-Luc Picard, leaving Beverly to raise their son, Wesley, largely on her own. That tragic backstory was already moving enough. Her decision to remain in Starfleet while balancing the responsibilities of motherhood was admirable. But what few realized is that Jack's death was not simply a random tragedy of space exploration. Starfleet's official reports described it as an accident, but Beverly carried a more personal burden. Behind closed doors, she harbored doubts about the mission, about command decisions, and even about whether she could have saved him had she been there. This private grief was something Crusher rarely spoke of, not even to Picard, whose own guilt over Jack's death was profound. Theirs was a relationship complicated not only by buried affection, but by the ghost of a man both of them had loved and lost. And yet, this wasn't the only heartbreak Starfleet had forced upon Beverly Crusher. The Starfleet posting she never spoke about. Before her time aboard the Enterprise D, Beverly served at several Starfleet medical facilities, including starbases and ships on the frontier. Records hint at her service during conflicts with the Cardassians in the mid-24th century, where medical officers faced unimaginable horrors. It was here, Trek canon has recently revealed, that Beverly endured her most haunting experience. She once commanded a triage outpost during a border skirmish. With Starfleet stretched thin, the medical staff found themselves under direct attack, forced to make impossible choices about who lived and who died. For Beverly Crusher, a woman defined by her oath to preserve life, this was the ultimate betrayal of her calling. She had to prioritize officers based on tactical value rather than medical need. Some survived because she ordered resources to them. Others perished because she withheld treatment. And though she saved countless lives, she never forgave herself for those she couldn't. This experience was kept classified, known only to a handful of Starfleet officials. Crusher herself never spoke of it, not to her son, not to her crewmates, not even to Picard. But it shaped her career in ways subtle and profound. Her insistence on holistic care, her unwillingness to treat people as expendable, and her near defiance of Starfleet bureaucracy in later years all trace back to this unspoken trauma. A doctor at war with Starfleet's ideals. What makes this revelation so devastating is that it shows Beverly Crusher as a woman caught between two conflicting codes: the humanitarian ethics of medicine and the cold pragmatism of Starfleet command. Star Trek often glorifies Starfleet as an enlightened organization devoted to exploration and peace. But for someone like Crusher, who saw firsthand how politics and strategy could outweigh compassion, the cracks in that image were impossible to ignore. Her medical career became a silent act of rebellion. She went above and beyond for civilians, pushed against orders that compromised her patients, and never hesitated to put herself at risk when others were in danger. Fans may remember episodes like Ethics or The High Ground, where Crusher clashed with Starfleet regulations in pursuit of doing what was right. These weren't isolated character beats, they were echoes of her past. Every time she stood up against protocol, she was fighting against the ghost of that outpost, the moment she was forced to compromise her ideals for survival. The secret comes full circle in Star Trek. Picard. In Star Trek, Picard Season 3, we find Beverly Crusher living outside of Starfleet, operating a medical ship of her own, providing aid in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. At first glance, it looks like a natural extension of her compassion. But when you place it against the backdrop of her Starfleet secret, it gains deeper meaning. Crusher left Starfleet because she could no longer serve an institution that once forced her to weaponize her medical expertise. By running independent missions, she freed herself from the bureaucracy that had betrayed her values decades earlier. It wasn't simply about helping more people, it was about reclaiming her oath as a doctor. Her heartbreaking confession to Picard about raising their son, Jack Crusher Jr., alone mirrored this theme. Just as she shielded Jack from the dangers of Starfleet, she shielded herself from ever again being complicit in its compromises. Her secret history wasn't just about personal loss, it was about systemic disillusionment. Why nobody saw it coming? Part of why this revelation hit so hard is because Beverly Crusher was never written as a tragic figure. Unlike Spock or Worf, whose conflicts were built around cultural and identity struggles, Crusher was framed as the steady, reliable anchor of the Enterprise. She was the one who held the crew together when their bodies or spirits faltered. That made her secret history all the more shocking. To realize that the woman who saved countless lives in the 24th century carried within her the memory of lives she couldn't save, that she was haunted by an ethical wound Starfleet itself inflicted, redefines her character. It also explains her quiet strength. Beverly Crusher wasn't just compassionate, she was resilient. She had already faced the darkest corners of Starfleet service and chosen to continue healing anyway. The tragedy of silence. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of Crusher's Starfleet secret is that she bore it alone. Star Trek has always celebrated the camaraderie of its crews, the idea that no officer has to carry their burdens in isolation. Yet Beverly never shared the full truth of her past, not even with her closest friends. Why? Maybe because she felt ashamed. Maybe because admitting the truth would mean admitting that Starfleet wasn't the perfect institution they all believed it to be. Or maybe because she feared that if she opened that door, she'd never be able to close it again. That silence defined her interactions with Picard and even with Wesley. Her reluctance to fully confront her past made her guarded, even as she gave everything to others. Why this secret matters for Star Trek's legacy. Star Trek has always used its characters to explore moral complexity. From Spock's struggle between logic and emotion to Sisko's compromise in the Pale Moonlight, the franchise 3